If anything needs to be addressed, it should be happening in that consultation. And then you're reintroducing it into the service. And then you're finalizing it with the very end when you're actually looking at the next appointment with them. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Successful Stylist Academy podcast. I'm your host, Ambrosia Carey, and joining us today is Drea Letcher. Drea, how's it going?
It's going great. Happy to be here. Always.
So today we're going to be diving right into some client consultation techniques. And of course, I famously am adding some stats in. If you want more, though, than these little bite-sized tangible tips, please be sure to join our waitlist for our membership. And I'm going to provide that in the show notes. We go into the 4 pillars of business, which are education, marketing, branding, and finance. So if you want more info about that, click that in the show notes. So I want to kick this off with my very first recommendation, which is active listening. We talk so much about how we talk behind the chair that sometimes we forget how to listen. So active listening is just obviously a technique where you're giving clients your full undivided attention and you're paraphrasing what they say so that you ensure that you're understanding what they have to say. And then you're asking more clarifying questions if something isn't clear to you. A lot of times clients get insecure because they're like, well, I don't know if I'm saying the right word, or I'm not sure how to say like the client or like your verbiage or whatever. And just reassuring them by saying like, oh, there's so many words for different techniques. And so I just want to see like visually, do you want to pull up a picture together, or do you want to describe to me, like if you can point out on your hair right now, what is a tone or what is a length or whatever that you will feel most comfortable with. So starting that. And then kind of diving into the stats a little bit, where active listening can improve our client satisfaction by up to 40%. So, and these stats are really coming widely from clients who are being polled by these interviews. But I think it's really interesting to hear how much a client really wants to feel like they're being heard. And a lot of being heard is just singularly in active listening. So practicing that by making sure that you're giving your undivided attention, you're paraphrasing, you're mirroring what you're seeing and hearing, and that you are asking clarifying questions are all going to set you up for a more effective consultation to begin with. What do you have for us, Drea?
Yeah, thanks, Ambrosia. So good, so important. And actually, I'll tag on to that for my second point. But my first point, behind the chair, I feel like we are doing so much. We're doing so much behind the chair in the salon. And I like to separate things into 2 categories. And it's going to be, this is, very, very technical. It is called the fun things and the not fun things.
So
And
technical.
yeah. Technically speaking, fun things, not fun things. And the not fun things to me are my policies, are pricing, talking about that type of thing with clients. And the fun things are the creativity, enjoying my client, having conversations about what's going on in their life, and, sharing experiences with them. So I'm a big believer in doing a kind of pre-consultation. Like, this is the pre-game before they come in, so that we've gotten all the non-fun things out of the way and we get to be creative, create the vision, make them happy with the end result, and really just enjoy our time together. So the pre-consultation looks like a little different for me with a first-time client as a client that's going to come in, but I think it needs to happen either way. So before a client is going to come in, I like to make sure that they do know my policies. I've offered to give them a price quote if they would like, which means I might need some information, inspiration pictures possibly also from them. And then I'm able to give them a price estimate. And I usually like to keep that within $20 to $40 of probably what I'm going to be charging them is the guideline that I like to try and utilize. And I let them know like what the differences would be if I need to mix an additional bowl of lightener, if I need to mix an additional, ounce of color, if, I'll know if their hair is like longer, if their hair is thicker, because I'll have them send me a picture beforehand. I like them to know what what I accept as far as like payment methods go. Like, let's talk about everything that's not fun, make sure it's clear, make sure that we're both comfortable and we've completely knocked that out. And then when they come in for the consultation, then that is where I get to, first make sure they're comfortable, drape them, like look them in the eye, like use my body language to be connecting with them, offer them a beverage or a snack if that's something that we're offering in the salon. So that's part of just serving my client for the additional consultation. These are techniques that I like to use. And before I pass it on to you, I am going to kind of just piggyback on what you said, Ambrosia, because I do also have that active listening aspect, because I think that we get into a rhythm and we're so ready to go back and mix color and get started on that hair that sometimes we have to remember there's a human in my chair,
What do you know?
Yeah. She's not she or here they are not just a head that I'm going to do hair on right now. There's a whole person attached. So making sure that I'm not just so in my rhythm and in my day and in my busyness, but I do stop to actively listen. Hearing and listening are different. We can hear noise, but that doesn't mean that we're processing it. It doesn't mean that we're creating a solution and conversation from that. So I like to active listen to my client. Then I loved how you said paraphrase, but repeat back to my client using words that they just used, not our verbiage, but words that they just used, in order to make sure that first I understand them, and most importantly, that they know that I understand them. So I think that is a really, really big part of the conversation. Sharing in my plan. Like, some clients are just like, I don't care, whatever. And then I just really, really minimize that. But sometimes they say what they want, but more importantly, they say what they don't want. So I like to make sure that they know that those things will certainly not be taking place anywhere in the cut or color or service that I'm about to provide for them. But then asking. So it's like, I active listened, I repeated back to them, I understand, they know that I understand. And then, does that sound good to you? Does that sound like a good plan? Especially if you're not going to reach their vision in this one appointment. And that is the second part of it. With that active listening, I might have to repeat back, unfortunately, but importantly, a realistic expectation to them. So what I can do today is this. I'm going to go about it in this manner because you mentioned, this is a concern, and I want to make sure that you're comfortable, and I'm addressing that throughout the process. And then next time we'll move into this and this and that. And I believe that in the next 3 appointments, we'll be able to have you where you want to be. So managing like realistic expectations. And I am big on giving the worst, like I'll be gloom and doom because I'm like, this is the worst case scenario. And so I'm definitely going to under promise and over deliver. And that is a strategy that I have used my entire career. So, yeah, what's up next, Ambrosia?
I think over promising and I think under promising and over delivering is always going to be the way that we should just be treating humans in general. I think it's really easy to get ahead of ourselves, or our people pleasing skills will step in sometimes, and we want to like promise the world, and then we end up running short on time. So I think just really setting realistic expectations in general is something that's such a key component when we're actually providing a consultation to our client. And going more into that, consultations, by the way, a lot of times stylists think they're giving a consultation, but most of the time clients don't feel like they're receiving that consultation. So I think in general, we just need to do a better job of making sure that a client feels seen, heard, and directed, and that we are setting ourselves up for success for that appointment. At our last episode, Drea made a really amazing point as a client in someone else's chair. She was saying that when she was visiting her previous stylist, that she would get charged differently every single time she came in, and that was off-putting. And I was also pointing out, as a testament to getting services done by my facialist, eventually it just got uncomfortable for me. And when she outpriced me basically is in the long short of it. Was I happy with the services she did? Yeah, I really was. And I wanted to continue to go to her. But unfortunately, because the prices varied so much, it made it uncomfortable for me that I didn't know what to expect. And I didn't want to have to budget higher than what I was expecting in return. I just would have liked to have been part of that process and deciding what my services were going to be and how much I was going to be spending. And if we set our clients up for success with that by setting those realistic expectations, then in general, it makes everything a lot more pleasant. So the techniques you want to discuss, you want to actually talk about the results that they're looking for and what goes into that process. You also want to talk about what goes into the maintenance of that. Because if you tell them that this requires a maintenance for them to come in every 6 weeks and they cannot possibly come in every 6 weeks, then the realistic expectation of that is that they won't be happy with the fadage or they won't be happy with their long-term results. So then you want to come up with a different recommendation from there. At least if you're going to be saying the recommendation to begin with, and even if they decide to go against that recommendation and they still want to get that service done, you did your part. You did the work and you told them what to expect. So that way they aren't hitting you up in 6 weeks saying, like, I hate the way my color's faded, or writing a bad review, or never going back to you again. Like, that's usually what happens. We just don't see that client again. And we wonder ourselves, like, I wonder why they didn't come back to me, especially if we retain them as a client and they just stop coming to us. Usually it's something that built up over time and we weren't aware of it. So I think it's really important that the consultation it's really the meat and potatoes of our business. It really is something that's like a main dish. We want to make sure that we're providing amazing communication, that we're really being transparent, that we're setting those expectations, that we're covering the costs and the process of things, that if somebody has a meeting they have to get back to you in 2 hours, but it actually takes you 3 to do this service, that you're really laying out those foundations. So you're not rushing through it and you're not stressed out. And you're also not setting the client up for failure or the opportunity for future services to be the best per service provider that you can be. So, I guess I want to leave that final thought with the consultation in general, that we want to make sure that we're setting everything up from beginning, middle to end of that service to the next time they should be seeing you in that consultation. Most of the time when I talk to stylists, they're saying to me, I have a hard time selling products because I don't know when to talk about those products, or I make all my recommendations to the products when we're heading up to the front desk or when I'm checking them out on my phone, and I tell them, like, this is what I'd recommend to you. And they're like, oh no, I'm good. And usually it's because in their mind, the service is done. And if you've taken the cape off, they are gone mentally from the space already. Like, they're thinking about the next part of their day, or they're thinking about the evening, or so it's really
100%.
important. Yeah. So it's so important to talk about that during the consultation is what I'm saying. Like, if anything needs to be addressed, it should be happening in that consultation. And then you're reintroducing it into the service. And then you're finalizing it with the very end when you're actually looking at the next appointment with them. Sometimes people even make the next appointment before they even start the service. So that makes them feel like, okay, we've gotten that out of the way, or we know for a fact that we need to get your next haircut done right before you go out of town, because I'm not going to see you again for another 8 weeks after that. Let's go ahead and look at over the schedule right now, and we'll figure that out. So we know we've got that set up for the time that you need. And then we'll go ahead and get started with your highlight. So little things like that can make a huge difference in the sustainability of your business, but also just taking amazing care of your clients.
And I want to help you guys out with that too, as far as like recommending products to your clients, because I mean, we're never recommending a product that our client does not 100% need. I mean, that's a given. But if you want to add a few questions into your consultation, and maybe you have to make a note of these first, and then they kind of become a little bit more just organic for you. But what are some things that you love about your hair is something that you can ask them. What are the biggest struggles that you have with your hair? Because they're going to say stuff like, my ends get dry, or this like this, or my hair doesn't hold, or ends up getting frizzy throughout the day. Or so if you're practicing active listening and you ask those 2 questions to your clients, then you get to use their words to recommend the products that are going to be the solution for the problem that they presented you with. And that kind of does some of your work for you. And you don't feel so salesy, because that's what I hear. Number one, like, I'm not a
Yeah,
salesperson. I'm uncomfortable, like feeling like I'm selling something to my client. And I never feel like that anymore, because I feel like I'm just sharing information that I know is going to help them. And ultimately they can just decide whether they want it or not.
totally.
So I think if you're to say, you mentioned how like you curl your hair and then it doesn't hold, or you'd like to round brush your hair, but you notice this, or you've noticed a little buildup on your scalp and this, and then you use their words and then you say, so just to address that, we do have a product that works in this way, and you want to be confident in sharing. So know your information, because they do like to know that you know more than they do. So giving them a little, scientific or technical information, but mostly paired with how it's going to help address exactly what they mentioned their challenge is going to help you to really simply, sell that product, unless it just comes down to it and they paid for their hair and they can't purchase that product today because they didn't budget that in. And a lot of them will say, can you let me know what that is? And like, maybe I'll plan on getting that next time. And then they know, and that's great. So I think that has been really helpful for me in the past. And so in closing out my points, I said pregame, we talked about the consultation. Ambrosia talked about, consultation as well, and different techniques and different verbiage in consultation. I like consultation, continued consultation, and consultation and closing. And what I mean by that is, we talked about the consultation. I went back, I mixed the color, I'm doing my thing. I come back out, consultation continued. This is where it goes from comfort, technical, and what the vision is going to be, to, okay, like, now what's going on in your life? Like, what do you do for a living? What's your hobby? Where did you just eat that was amazing? What shows are you watching? Blah, blah. What's your family? All of the things. I mean, read the room. Some people don't want to talk as much. Some people don't want to share personal things. Some people want you to talk the whole time. And that takes a little while if that's something you're not super comfortable with. But I even just have like some of my go-to questions, or if there's something funny that happened recently, like, I'll share that story, over and over again for a week or two. My poor stylist that works next to me gets to hear it like 17 times, but she could probably tell the story. So just continuing with the consultation, just to continue to build the client relationship, is what continued consultation looks like for me. And then in closing is consultation continued, which ends with the drape still on. So I love that you made mention of that, Ambrosia, so that they're not checked out yet. But consultation continued for me looks like, I can't be afraid as a stylist to say, did I meet your expectation? I'm really loving this, but what matters more is that you love it. Like, how do you feel
Yes.
about your hair? You're not going to hurt my feelings. Like, I'm going to give you the mirror. We're going to look at your hair from every angle right now. And I want to make sure that you are completely happy with it. And then for next time, especially if we already talked about the ongoing process of their hair, I envision this, or next time I see you, and we'll go ahead and get that scheduled before you leave, we'll move to the next step that we discussed. But making sure that they are happy and that you delivered on what you said you were going to deliver on, and not being afraid to have that conversation and that feedback. And then finally, before I take them up to take payment and to rebook them and to sell them whatever products that they are wanting that we had discussed. And I will say, did you want me to grab this off the shelf for you? Or is there anything that I mentioned that you wanted to go home with today? And that's very soft. There's no like sales part in that. I don't feel like. So those are some of the words that I like to use. I just want you to know that I really appreciate you, spending your time and even putting me into your budget and choosing to come and see me. I really, really loved our time together today. Like, I close it with something personal, then I take them up, I check them out, I get them rebooked, or the receptionist can do that, and they're on their way. So that's kind of like what a full appointment consultation from pre-game to ending and closing out with my client looks like for me. And I hope that you'll be able to take some of those and benefit from them as well.
That's cool. I love little tiny nuggets of verbiage because we all word things just slightly differently based on the skills we've acquired, the type of clients we've had, like what our preferences are. And a lot of times, I already have developed in my mind that they're buying that product. There's no really other option. And if they decide not to buy it, then that's completely up to them. But I always want to put I want to put my client in the driver's seat. Like if I give them all the information and I arm them with a lot of information, then in my mind, they have already made that decision because I've given them reason to, because it benefits them. So a lot of times if I'm talking to that client, I'll just simply say something along the lines of, aside from that heat protectant, is there anything else that you need me to grab? Or is there anything
I
else you're
like that.
running low on in the salon? So it's like I'm kind of like finalizing it or finishing up with, aside from me grabbing this, or I'm going to go ahead and grab that texturizing sprays or anything else that you're running low on, or is there
I
anything else
like
that
that.
yeah. So just like you're already assuming that they're going to be buying it. And sometimes people will say like, oh, I'm not going to get it right now. And then I'll say, you know what? In that case, I'm going to make note of it because this is something that I think you're going to really benefit from. And we'll revisit it next time I see you. So no problem. We'll have notes. So that if you want to come get it later, we'll have it on file. So then nobody has to worry like what was that thing. So I'll usually just do that piece. It's like over communicating, but also developing different avenues of just helping that person for future, assuming that they're going to get it rather than assuming that they're going to want to go to a drugstore and buy something else instead. So I think we just really need to put the power back in that positioning of how can we provide the most excellent communication, provide the most education experience for our client. So that way we can also be successful in our delivery system and providing options to our clients and making them feel like armed with lots of information. And really, at the end of the day, like at the end of all this game or whatever it is that we're doing here, we want to make sure that we're extending our knowledge and our information to our clients because that makes us align better as people in general. And it makes us feel better about what it is that we're doing behind the chair. Most people that get in their industry, they're like, I just want to make people feel better. I mean, how many of you, if you raise your hand, most of us are going to raise our hand with saying that. They're not like, no, I just got into this because I didn't know what else to do with my life. That's usually not a sustainable way of staying in any kind of business or doing anything long term. So we have more of these conversations inside of our membership. I mentioned this to you before. I'll go ahead and put the wait list in the show notes so that you can join the wait list. You'll get more information about that. This week, we've actually been talking specifically about consultations. So that's why I bring it up. And we have a lot more detailed verbiage as far as getting around certain personalities as well. So, of course, this is your official invite. I want to just remind you to always dream big and just set those goals at higher power and take action on it. And I will enjoy talking with you once again next week. Enjoy your day. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.